Well, hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 13 of Chihayafuru, and the Omi Jingu is here, I guess. We are about to start the national tournament. Chihaya's team qualified for it, which was very awesome. We had that in episode 11, and then last week's episode was all about getting training going, getting the tennis club sponsor on board with taking them, getting them to where the tournament's gonna be, and then of course, we had to have just like a little tiny sliver of a preview that maybe is Arata gonna be there? I don't know. But Chihaya has him on her mind thinking about what the national tournament is like, and he calls it all red. The ending of episode 12 was so good. It's just, it's stuck in my brain this last week. I took a week off between episodes 12 and 13, just because I had a lot of other things going on, but I'm excited. I'm excited not only because we're obviously getting ready to start the national tournament, but we're only on episode 13. Now, all I know about Chihayafuru is that season 1 is 25 episodes. When I was getting my vacation ready and planning things out, I did look that up, but that's all I know. So, since we are technically in the second half of the season, I can't believe we're only in the second half of season 1. I'm curious if we're going to get a new OP or not. Or if it's going to be a new OP, if it's going to be a new ED, if we're going to stick with the same ones. This series is old enough I could see it sticking with the same OP and ED, but I don't know. I don't know if that's what it's going to do or not. So I guess we're going to find out. But I'm really excited. This series has been so much fun, and I really love it. I hope I didn't freak people out on the Discord. I've been posting screenshots as we've been leading up to the episodes, and the last couple of days, like, just nobody had responded to the screenshots, and I was, like, having a moment of intrusive thoughts, like, do people care about this show anymore? And so then people were like, yeah, we care, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, you're just lurkers. I'm like, y'all are just lurking, that's all. Which is fine, but I was like, it's kind of like when you just release something in the nethersphere and nobody responds back, and you're like, are you guys still there? So I'm glad you all are still enjoying the reactions and the discussion and the show. I hope you all are. If you're not, let me know, I guess, in the comments down below. But hopefully you all are. I do have a couple of comments before we start. Mainly from Foranoda, who talks about the episode 10 poem, and then from H Banana 7. Foranoda for episode 10 says, our poem of the day connects with the title of this episode once more, meeting and parting, which this is the episode where they were starting out that final match, right? And episode 11 concluded it. Poem 10 was composed by Seimi Maru, a Japanese poet-musician of the early Heian period. While his name is recorded in the Hyakunin issue, there are no historical accounts of his existence. Purportedly, he was a blind lute player of some relation to royalty, stories describing him as the son of a prince or emperor. Why don't we have an anime about him? He sounds amazing. Where's his backstory? Where's the anime about him? I want to watch that. Semimaru lived alone in a straw hut in Osaka, which means meeting slope, where the emperor established a formal checkpoint barrier, Osaka no Seke, at this summit in 646. Just located outside of Kyoto, today the place is known as Osaka. This checkpoint became a popular place for meeting with people and going from the capital of Kyoto. The characters Osaka, meaning meeting slope, also double as a pun for the place name, Osaka. Originally, the poem was probably about the location itself and the coming and going of people, but due to the time period and the rise of Buddhism, it also gained a connotation of transience of life, something that we've seen a lot of in the Hyakunin issue already. I watched a movie a while back, like, about Hosokai, and there was a bridge that was, like, referencing to Kyoto in that movie. Is that the same bridge? I'm curious. I'm curious if that was the same bridge. I might have to look that up. But yeah, in relation to the show, I interpreted the title and poem as a reflection of how the club has started off on their journey to Omi Jingu and the national team tournament. It also marks the beginning of the Mizusawa Karuta Club in the real, I guess in the show, maybe that's what it's referring to. Also, Peter McMillan translates poem 10 as follows, Simimaru. So this is the place, crowds, coming, going, meeting, parting, those known, unknown, the gate of Meeting Hill. As McMillan comments, poem 10 is unique in the collection in the way in which the rhythm of its lines creates a marvelous sense of movement. Yeah, if you could see this poem on the page, it very much has that, like, it's like a waterfall of words. But also says that the theme is once again the fragility of life. this time expressed through the evanescence of life's encounters, including those of love. The Osaka Barrier, translated here as the Gate of Meeting Hill, situated on the edge of Lake Biwa near Kyoto, marked the border between the ancient provinces of Yamashiro and Omi, dividing the eastern and western parts of Japan. In poetry, it was used to signify a meeting place between travelers and, by extension, lovers, because the ao in Osaka, the archaic spelling of Osaka, puns with ao to meet, especially in the context of a romantic encounter, and hence the name meant something like Meeting Hill. As this is the first episode where the Karuta Club faces off against real competition, I think the poem fits well. All the players are meeting at the regional tournament, and to each other, they are passing travelers. Some are friendly faces and some complete strangers. Yet, no matter which, they form a barrier that is blocking one another from moving on to the national competition. As far as that connotation of love goes as well, I kind of think it fits where we'd have Chihaya talking about how much she loves when others love the art of Karuta. Of Karuta. So to me, it's like this entire tournament when she's like having a fangirl moment and she has the starry like heart eyes, and you have Taichi being like, why are you reacting that way? She's like, because everybody's playing Karuta here and it's so much fun. Like, that to me, I think has that romantic atmosphere as well. So that's really cool. Thank you, Foranoda, for giving us that episode 10 poem and its meaning. That's pretty cool. And then H Banana 7 comments saying, our two boys, Taichi and Arata, in episode 11 were so beautiful. Taichi's big glowing smile at the end. I especially loved quiet, shy Arata leaning his head to the side to see the photo. His dark hair, dark eyes, and the glare on the glasses. It gets me every time. The mangaka does such a good job keeping Arata's presence in the story thumping. Honestly, we see him so rarely that things would tip in Taichi's favor if Arata wasn't who he was. I mean, no, I will respectfully disagree. I think Arata is always on Chihaya's mind. The problem to me, in my opinion, is that Taichi thinks that Arata is on Chihaya's mind for purely romantic reasons. And for Chihaya, I don't think that if it is romantic, I don't think she recognizes it. I think it's purely that she idolizes him and he's her inspiration. So why wouldn't she think of him? You know, but yeah, Taichi, my dude, your long suffering continues. And so his watch continues. But yeah, thank you all so much for the comments and for the kind words. I really appreciate it. But I've been so excited to get to this episode. It's been a week. I've had other things to record and work on, but I'm so glad that now we get to get down to business. So yeah, I'm excited to see what we get. But we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive into episode 13 of Chihayafuru, see if we have new OP, ED, what we get. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. I'm sorry, what? What was this angst? What was this episode? This episode was a damn tease. This episode caused me anxiety. This episode just was like, oh, hey, were you waiting were you wanting Chihaya and her friends to like battle it out round for round until they got to the final, and then maybe Arata would sweep up and it'd be like every generic expectation that you ever had? Well, guess the frick what? Not gonna happen. Oh, the audacity of this show. We are only 13 episodes in. I have 2 more seasons after this. You can't do this to my heart, show. This mangaka is cruel. This mangaka is absolutely cruel. I don't know if I can watch this show and view it as a romance because the teasing is so horrific. I was like, that was dangling your shipper heart above a pit of lava. And then just being like, just kidding. Bitch, what? No. Mangaka, no. That's not fair. That's not fair. It's not fair. Oh my God. So let's talk about this episode. I am still just so pissed. I'm not mad because it was a bad episode. It was good. I'm mad because of the way this mangaka has toyed with my emotions so effectively. How dare she? Oh my God. Okay. So some things to note that our tennis players, like, okay, you have to, do things properly at this shrine. Listen to me, there's a procedure. You bow twice, you clap twice, and you bow once. Did everybody do that correctly? Was Chihaya paying attention when this all went down? Because she might have cursed herself. She's like, the gods are not always so forgiving. She's like, are you getting this done? We got to follow the proper procedures when you're making a wish. Okay, so did she do things right? Did she do it right? Okay, she bowed twice. Did she do the clapping right? Okay, we assume so. We didn't see her clapping. Chihaya, you on this? I mean, her wish was so simple and was so perfect. It was just, the wish was, not to let there be any accidents and for everything to go well. You know what? What I should view this as is maybe this unanswered prayer was a blessing in disguise, because it allowed for her and Arata to have a moment together. It allowed for Arata to come to a decision about himself thanks to the chance encounter after helping her get into the car. So maybe all of this was meant to be. Maybe because of this moment and this incident, it led him to... And we have to view it that way. We have to view it in a sense that because he helped her, because all of this happened in the moment, because of what happened, if he hadn't experienced that moment with Chihaya, if he hadn't seen how determined she was and how much she wanted to play and everything, if he hadn't gone down and had that conversation with the one guy who was like, your grandfather is here because your Karuta is your grandfather. You keep your grandfather's legacy alive by playing like him. If that conversation hadn't happened, would Arata have made the note to give to Chia? So it's just like a series of all of these events and time colliding, and it had to happen that way. She had to pass out at the right moment, right as he showed up for it to happen. So you know what? It was fate. I'm going to tell myself that. It was fate, mangaka. Fine, I'll give you a pass. Damn, this episode was a lot. This episode was emotional. It was a lot. I wasn't ready for it to be that emotional. And yeah, they bowed one more time. And as she stood up, she had a flash, right? She had a flash in that moment. Now, was that flash her getting a migraine or getting like, a sign that she was dizzy or lightheaded or something? Was that a sign? It could have been. It could have very well been. I've had moments where I felt like a little twinge of something and I was like, oh, I'm perfectly fine. And then I know myself well enough as I'm older that when I start to get a little flash of headache, I'm like, oh, I know what's happening. But when I was younger, when I was her age, I most definitely probably was like, oh, it's nothing. I'll be fine. And then it just escalates into something else. So she might have pushed back the idea that she wasn't feeling well. And then it escalated, and her being in the kimono, in a noisy environment, the show does a really good job of not, like, hand-holding for us and not telling us, like, this is why Chihaya isn't feeling good. Because, you watch some anime. I've watched some anime in the past. It's like, oh, no, because of the heat and her sensitivity to sound, that's why she's having a reaction. This show does not treat you like you're a kindergartner that needs to be told everything that's happening line by line. It lets you figure it out for yourself. So yeah, the idea of the anxiety of it being nationals and wanting to do well, the anxiety of her wanting to do well for her team and do well for Arata, subconsciously, the idea of being in this hot kimono, which Nishida kind of foreshadowed, being like, it's really hot. And even if there was air conditioning, if you're sick and then you're hot and stuffy and uncomfortable, that makes it worse and magnifies it. Then the fact that we know Chihaya is reactive to sound. So in this noisy spotlight and the flashback with the grandpa that Arata has signifies and foreshadows that too, or the grandpa's like, yeah, the spotlight's on you and you're sweating. All of that just combined into this perfect storm of her not being able to handle it for her first match, right? And like, is everybody going to come back here? And she's like, Arata, I finally made it. My dream hasn't changed. And he's like, that makes you the queen. And as soon as she says that, this other woman walks up. This woman with the mole, the distinct mole, the purple eyes, the dark hair. She looks like a female version of Arata. Don't trust anybody with purple eyes. They're usually OP as hell. And so she seems OP as hell. You can just look at her and tell. She looks like a female errata, right? Interesting. But yeah, she moves past her and Chiaya's like, are you a future opponent? Are we going to fight at some point in this series? Possibly. But yeah, for you, I head out. I think the poem, I'm sure that Fornado will be able to post the meaning of it. I'm sure it connects to Chiaya and, I mean, really for Arata, because this is like the moment he decides to come back. So we have the National Ogura 100 Poets Karuta Championship. And everybody's getting here. Nishida, I love the orange on Nishida. I think it looks amazing. I think all their colors look perfect. They color coded perfectly for nationals, so good job, Kana. I like that Kana's mom came along. She looks just like her, and she's adorable. She's also like, okay, male models. I found so many. I found possible suitors for my daughter. Everything's great. Or she's a cougar, and she's just looking for prospects, which, girl, high school Karuta tournament, not the place to do it. I'm kidding. But yeah, I thought this cool. Also, her mom is just so sweet. I love her so much. And then Chiaya, she's like, I've already finished hers. And I think it's a sign when Chiaya, I feel like, look, I'm not going to spoil other sports anime that I've watched that involve characters within them getting sick. I can't believe we had it this early on in the series, though. This was not an episode 13 event I was expecting, but Chihayafuru is like expect the unexpected, apparently. But yeah, so if you've watched those sports anime where characters have gotten sick, there are usually little moments of foreshadowing throughout that when you're watching, you don't see it. And then it comes back and you're like, oh, well, hell. And so what I talked about before qualifies, but the fact that Chiaya was dressed and just sitting there quietly contemplating is uncharacteristic of her and should have been a sign that something was off. But she was probably not thinking about it because she didn't want to be sick and she didn't want to admit that there was sickness coming on and she didn't want to do that, with her friends there and, you're at the national tournament and everything. I like these people hanging over the banister and watching her. That's a really cute little scene. But yeah. And then Taichi says, are you okay? Are you nervous? And she's like, oh, no, I'm fine. I'm just fine. And he's like, really? Which should have been a sign. I feel like in that moment, Taichi was being a little observant and he was noticing that something was off. But before he could really delve deeper and maybe figure out that she was sick, which we don't get Taichi kind of reflecting on that in this episode, so I'm going to be curious if in future episodes he reflects on it or not. This episode had so much going on, and I feel like it's one of those episodes where we're going to go back next week to moments of what Taichi was thinking about with Arata being there and all that, because there's little parts they cut to, and I don't know if they just cut it out of the manga at the time, or if we're going to go back and see it next episode. We might go back and see it next episode, or hear me out, the mangaka might wait and later on down the road we'll revisit those scenes because they've already done that in this episode with the grandpa. And I'm like, oh, so I'm on to you, mangaka. I'm on to your tricks. Things that I feel like you're going to come back to. I feel like we're going to do it. Okay. One thing about Nishida as a character, I like Nishida. For all of those who enjoy Nishida as a character, I don't want you thinking that I'm hating on him. Because I don't. I really like Nishida. But damn, this boy cannot read the room and keep his mouth shut. I'm like, no! I'm like, and he doesn't whisper it to his teammates, which I'm a coach. And when we go to a tournament as a team, there is an etiquette. You want to be polite. We always tell students, we're like, you are judged the moment you walk in that door. Whether you know it or not, there are judges all around you at a tournament. And granted, Karuta and speech is a little bit different because at a Karuta tournament, you're not being judged by the judges. It's literally your skill against one another. But in a speech competition, you're judged by judges. And so we're like, the moment you step in the door, you are being watched and you are being listened to. And you want to be professional and don't be that person. That's just like, don't be Nishida, because I would have been onto Nishida in a heartbeat. Because he's like, awesome, none of the super schools are in our group. And Kana says it as well. And I guess Kana should have gotten onto as well. So no hate to the Kana lovers as well. But I'm like, girl, don't say that. You don't want to be like, oh, none of the tough schools are in our group. I'm like, if I was one of the schools in their group, I'd been like, what the fudge are you talking about? So then the other thing was Nishida just gets out Retro-kun's notes to say we need to watch out for Fujisaki from Shizuoka, the local Zentokuji. And like, who are they? Now, apparently they lose to Fujisaki, if I'm hearing right. They lost to them in the playoffs later on while she was passed out. So that was a bit of foreshadowing. And there's also Kunimi High from Fukui. Now, Fukui is where Arata is from, and that snaps Chihaya out of her daze momentarily when they're like, they beat Hokuo in the group stage last year. And he's like, but Wataya isn't registered for the individual tournament tomorrow. Okay. So I can't believe I'm still floored that the team tournament's over. The team tournament is over. They lost. They won 2 rounds, and then the playoffs they lost to Fujisaki. I am stunned that that's just been skipped over. We're going to talk about Tsutomu because I'm pissed about that, but I'm floored that we just off screen, it's over. I mean, subvert my expectations, absolutely, but I was like, oh, that's it? We made it to nationals? And we just, I mean, I'm glad we got the Arata backstory. I would gladly take the Arata backstory, but I am just floored that we aren't going to have any more team matches. It's now all individual episodes from here on in. I'm guessing till the end of the season. Mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Now, if we get episodes that are like focused on each individual character, like, you know, we're episode 14 is next week. So episode 14, if we focus on like Nishida's individual match, and then we have like 15, 16, 17, 18, that's getting you close to the season finale. But then it's like, what else are we doing for season 1? I feel like we've gotten so much, you know, we have so much left of this season and we're already done with the team matches. I'm kind of amazed. So I was like, oh, okay. Just floored. But yeah. So they did the team match tournaments, and then tomorrow they start the individual ones. And Arata wasn't registered, but will he show up regardless, or will he register? Can he register at the last minute? How does that work? I mean, they're individual tournaments, so I guess if you're a certain rank, you can register. I don't know how that works. And then he's not registered for the individual tournament tomorrow. And then Chihaya is like, oh, so she thinks he's not showing up. And Taichi, of course, looks over and sees that she seems kind of bummed about that. Taichi is just a masochist. He is a glutton for punishment. And the thing that blows my mind throughout this whole episode is Taichi thinks, it's like we've talked about the love triangle. Taichi thinks that Chihaya wants to be with Arata. Chihaya does not right now want to be with either of them. She just likes both of them as friends, and she's in a personal relationship with Karuta, and that's it. But she idolizes Arata because he got her inspired to play Karuta, and she loves Taichi in the sense that he's helped support her and help form this team, but she's not romantically interested in either of them, right? At this point, she's not. She's Goku of Karuta. But Taichi thinks that she loves Arata, and I'm sure Arata, probably based on the spoilery comment last episode, which I'm still not over. I wish I was, but I'm not. Apparently Arata thinks that Taichi and Chihaya are dating. So he thinks she loves Taichi. Taichi thinks she loves Arata. Both of these boys are wrong. And Chihaya has no clue, so she can set them straight. And it's like, stupid love triangle. This is Fruits Basket all over again. Although, I will say, without giving much away with Fruits Basket, I've not watched the 2019 anime. I've had a lot of people want me to watch it, but I have read the manga. I did read the manga before the anime. Do I remember all of it? No. I do remember the ending, though, so that's been why I've been very hesitant to react to the anime, because I'm like, I know how it ends. I've just forgotten a lot in between that went on. And I'm sure the anime is beautiful and I'd love to see it, but reacting is not as fun to me if it's not like blind reaction. So I don't know how people would react to that, to me watching something I already kind of know what's going to happen. But with that series, I'm just going to say, and this is some Fruits Basket spoilers, with that series, from the first volume, I knew who she was going to end up with. It was really obvious to me. And at times it got frustrating because I was always shipping her with the person she ends up with from the get-go. Like, I was like, oh no, this is locked in from the start. And from the end of the first arc where, again, Fruits Basket spoilers, from the end of the first arc where he turns into the cat monster and then she's with him at the end, I was like, I know how this is going to end. She's going to end up with him. That's so obvious. And then it happens. And by the end of it, though, the other character that is part of the love triangle, he ends up finding happiness with someone else. And I totally shipped him with her. I was like, oh, that's a great development for him. But I think that it wasn't hard for me to ship them together because I was never really shipping him with her. So with our main girl. So in that series, the ship I was rooting for from the beginning was always cemented and was never really challenged. There were some moments where I was like, oh, okay, you're trying to suggest she might go with him, but we all know it's not going to happen. Into Fruits Basket spoilers. So for me in that one, I was a very happy person shipping because things were all working all right for me. I don't know in this series. I really don't. Because a part of me is like, oh, her and Arata could develop their relationship later on and rekindle and everything, and he could pursue her when he figures things out for himself. One thing I like about Arata in this episode is that he is not pursuing Chihaya like Taichi maybe thinks that he is, or in his mind believes that he is. Arata is trying to fix himself first. Good. That's what he needs to do, because he's had a lot of trauma. And you can tell that he's been really affected by the things that have happened to him, as anyone would be. So Arata is focusing on getting himself together, and that's smart, and that's good. And I would respect someone so much if they're like, I've got to love myself and be happy with myself before I even think about being in a relationship with you. And I don't know if Arata even considers Chihaya romantically. I don't. There's a part of me that thinks that he does, but then there's a part of me that thinks him and Chihaya might just be friends. I don't know. And then you have Taichi and Chihaya, which I root for Taichi. I do. My heart bleeds for him. He's got some ways to go, but I think that his jealousy in his heart is right now his biggest hurdle, because he thinks that he is thinking something that is not confirmed. And he doesn't know her real feelings about Arata and all of this. He just thinks he does. So again, I don't know who she'll end up with. And if any of y'all spoil it for me, I will hate you forever. So please don't do that. Because I know I have so long to go in this series. And the mystery of it is what I love about this series. But damn, this episode is so frustrating. If you're a shipper, you're watching this episode go, oh my God. Anyway. So everybody notices the crew, everybody notices Chihaya's team. And of course, all the ladies are like, Pseudo lost? What, Pseudo? I'm like, you clearly don't know Pseudo very well, because I don't know. Pseudo's hot, but he's also a sadist and kind of creepy. But it's fine. It's an endearing way. I also love the little gesture of Nishida with his arms around Tsutomu. That part was really cute. So yeah, so look at the notes. Saga Regional and Takachi High School. The Karuta Club is 8 years old. Last year was their first appearance at Nationals. They made it out of the group stage, but lost in the first round. They have no other achievements to note. Be careful of 2 Class B players, Ryuhei and Ayako. They have no other players of note. Man, damn! What a scathing, like, Retro-kun holds nothing back. Retro-kun is pretty brutal. He's pretty savage about it. Like, damn. Okay. Poor Gokuro, who's a third year in Class D. I feel for you. But yeah, so I guess they made it out of the group stage, but lost in the first round. So I guess in the group stage is where they were at, and I guess the playoffs is maybe where they lost in the first round too. Interesting. Okay. And they're like, are they a strong team? Here's my thing. What I was hoping somebody would say, but we didn't really have time to talk about it in this episode. But when they're like, are they a strong team? You cannot assume anything about any of these characters and their ranks. Because honestly, the only Class A ranked player, isn't it Chihaya? Is Nishida also Class A ranked? Are they? I think, is Nishida Class A? Might be. But then you have Tsutomu and Kana, who've played for like 2 months, who've barely played, and Taichi. I'm like, you cannot base how the game is going to go. I always tell students that I coach, the first mistake you're going to make is thinking that you've got this in the bag based on who your opponent is. You cannot assume that, because you may have an off day. Like Chihaya, you may get up against an opponent and everything, just the cards line up, literally in this case, for them. And they don't line up for you. You may have an off day. Something may happen. They may be on their best game ever. You can't predict an opponent and if they're going to win or lose before you even start the game. You just can't do that. It is a recipe for disaster. You just have to go in and play the hardest, like play against them as you would a championship team. And that's all you got to do. And then hope the chips fall your way. Also, can I just say what my biggest beef of this episode is? My biggest beef of this episode is that Tsutomu had his first win off screen. What? One of the things I was looking so forward to in this series was Tsutomu's first win and getting to celebrate that with him, because he's been struggling the last couple episodes, and I was like, I wanted to see his first win on screen and to see the joy on his face like we got to see with Kana and her first win. I wanted to see that. And the episode sets it up right here. He's like, oh, I'm going to be a sacrificial pawn and you guys can win and it'll be okay. And then once Chihaya fainted, I was like, oh, okay, well, she's forfeit, so now the pressure's on. Tsutomu has to step up. And what I thought the episode was going to do, when we started getting the errata flashback, I honestly thought that it was going to just finish. I thought this was going to be a two-parter, honestly. I thought it was going to be a two-parter, and we were going to get Arata's flashback, and the episode was going to end with him showing up at the hall to see Chihaya, and maybe her fainting was going to be the end of the episode, or him taking her out, and then the episode was going to end with Tsutomu stepping up, and the next episode we were going to see Tsutomu face the match and win the game for them, whatever. I had a whole scenario played out in my head, and then it started to not do that, and I was like, okay, well, maybe the other three, Nishida, Kana, and Taichi, will win, and they'll advance to the next round, and we'll just go from there. He won off screen, and I'm proud of him. I'm happy for him, but I was like, mangaka, that was supposed to be a big moment. You're not going to show us that? You've given Nishida a moment, Kana a moment, Taichi a moment, Chihaya? Where's Tsutomu's big moment? Oh, I was the audacity. And granted, in this moment, Chihaya is blushing, so I'm like, was she blushing because she felt moved in that moment, or was she a little bit sick, when you look in hindsight at it? So she's thinking, she's like, we made it this far because of everybody on my team. And then she's like, well, we'll just fight. Let's go. But Chihaya is starting to get nervous. And it's not just her getting nervous. The card have been soaked, we read, with tears of blood is the most ominous thing. I kept looking at that card during the reaction being like, have we seen this card before? Is this card foreshadowing something? Did the black-haired girl with purple eyes curse this card and give it to her? What is happening? So I was a little bit concerned right from the get-go. I like the tennis coach is nervous though too. But yeah, and Taichi notices something's kind of off with her. And he's like, everybody's doing fine, but even he knows that something's wrong with Chihaya. She's like, it's hot and there's too much noise, too many people. And now I'm cold. Yeah, she's just sick. And she's like, why would you do this, God? I wanted you to keep us safe from accidents. Because God had plans, and that plan, she's like, I wasn't asking for a miracle. And he's like, well, too bad you're getting errata. I've already sent him that way. I can't, no take backsies. And then I liked errata getting lost. Here's the thing. One thing that I love about Arata's character is everyone around him views him as this Karuta god, like the man that he meets at the tournament that's like, oh my god, it's you. And everyone knows that he's this talented person and they put him up on a pedestal. Meanwhile, Arata is this shy, awkward teenager that gets lost. Train stops. And then they pile on the angst. They just pile on the angst. They make it to where, oh yeah, I usually came by car with my grandpa who died. It's like, his grandpa was also a catch, by the way. Arata's got some good genetics going on. Like, Chihaya, if you get in on that, I don't blame you. And then, okay, I was about to cry this episode. I was about to cry because it's clear that he's probably had a stroke. My great-great-grandmother had my great-grandmother. No, my great-great-grandmother. Yeah, it was my great-grandmother's mother. She had a stroke in her 90s when I was younger. And she had a stroke. And I remember her right side was paralyzed. And we had an in-home. My great-grandmother took care of her. She had an in-home nurse. It was like a big thing. But the stroke that she had, now they never diagnosed her with dementia, but because of the stroke she had, her long-term memory was great. She could remember stuff from like 50 or 60 years ago. But in the same conversation, she didn't know who I was because I was her great-great-granddaughter. So she always called me my mom's name, my aunt's name, my other aunt's name. She could never get my name right. And I was like maybe 9 or 10 at the time. So I was about the age of young Arata in this flashback. And I was kind of like, well, and I had only known my great-great-grandmother for that amount of time. And I knew she was old when I knew her. But I understood what a stroke was when I was that age because I was like, oh, this has affected her memory. Her short-term memory was just wiped out completely. And she just had long-term memory. But dementia is a whole different thing. And the full explanation of Arata's grandfather's passing in this episode, I felt like they plowed through that backstory. Like, here it is. I feel like they could have drug it out if they wanted to, but oh my God, the through line of my grandpa's still my grandpa. And when he sees him for the first time with the bandage on his head and everything, everything's fine. But then when his grandfather gets dementia and starts forgetting Karuta and starts forgetting what bonded them together as grandfather and grandson, then there's that, my grandfather is not my grandfather anymore. And that, I was like, oh my God, the emotion of that sentiment is horrifying. And then there's the whole thing about the day of the tournament, which we'll get to, that I was like, oh my God. So anyway, his grandfather, even though his right side is paralyzed, he still is like, I'm going to still play Karuta. I've not given up. I could even play with my left hand. And, Arata takes so much pride and is in awe of his grandfather. And then we see the master. So it's the master and queen finals. So we only see the master finals with Master Miki, and they're in the kimonos for that. Now, let me tell you something. In this moment, during this matchup, when we see the two men on screen, one man who is, with dark hair and a blue kimono, another man with slightly brown hair and a green kimono. Who did it look like to you? It looked like Taichi and Arata is who it looked like. And I was like, oh, is this foreshadowing of things to come? Mangaka, are you getting all up in this? Yeah. And so then I liked how kind of cheeky his grandfather was. He's like, what was being in a final like? And he's like, oh, it's like you're a superstar. Like, he was actually kind of like, cheeky and like just revel in it. He's like, be a winner. He had Alyssa Edwards energy, which is, in the words of Alyssa Edwards, it is not wanting, it's not whether you win or not. It's whether you wanted to win or not. And it's that mentality of, I'm going to go in and I'm going to win. And then if you don't, there's no crumbs, no regrets. You left everything on the table. What have you got to lose? So he was like, you just revel in it. Be a rock star. Go in there. Like, his grandpa had big dick energy, okay? And he was just all about it. Put yourself on that stage. Sweat under the spotlight with everyone's eyes on you. And then picture yourself winning. And then he's there at the tournament. I love that you could tell, like, going back and forth based on the bag he was carrying, whether it was the present time or not. So then when he hurried home, his grandpa had another episode, right? And his heart was weak. But then in this, he was having onset dementia. And they said his brain was shrinking. He had early stage dementia, which it seems like it progresses very quickly. And he just wasn't like his grandfather anymore. And seeing how upset Arata is at the fact of losing his grandfather, which you can make all the parallels to how Chihaya felt when she thought that Arata didn't love Karuta anymore and he wasn't who he was before. You can make all the parallels to that moment, to this moment of him and his grandfather. You can make all of those connections, everything. And then we'll talk about when he's with her later on in the scene by themselves. But I feel so bad for Arata because that was his favorite person in the world. And for them not to be themselves is horrifying. And he's like, this can't be real. And for him to cry about it. So we find out from his classroom, from his friend that lives next door, that Shoji in his class made class A. And we also find out that his grandfather taught a bunch of them. And then he's like, we're lucky to have your master for a master for you. What does he say there? He says, oh, well, you were lucky. Okay, so Shoji's the one that got class A. And he's like, you were lucky to have a master for a grandfather, but now it's the other way around. He's the reason you don't have time to practice. And that's when he punches him, which Shoji should not have said that. Shoji might have deserved that punch a little bit because that was, read the room, my dude. That was insulting his grandpa. You don't talk shit about Arata's grandpa. But then he gets the letter from Chihaya that she'd made class C and she was working hard. So that adds up, which it's not all Chihaya's fault. And I'm not saying it's Chihaya's fault about him going to that tournament that day. There was all these different factors that added up to that moment of him going. So there was the fact that he was feeling pressure from his classmates that were leaving him behind. The fact that Chihaya was going forward and he felt like she was going to leave him behind. It's so amazing to me that these other characters, Taichi thinks he can't catch up to Arata. And meanwhile, Arata's sitting here with Chihaya, who's a class C player, going, I'm going to hurry or I'm not going to catch up. Just everyone's perspective being different. Like the grass is always greener is such a theme in this series, right? So then it all makes sense. The mom had the class reunion and she couldn't be there. The dad worked till noon and he's like, yeah, I can watch over my grandpa, but he was going to go to that tournament. And he resigned himself to just not going. He wasn't going to go. He was going to take his grandpa. He was going to take care of his grandpa. And then, he's getting on to him about eating and everything. And when he sees the calendar, he has a moment where he pulls it together. But here's the thing with dementia and Alzheimer's and things like that. The moment he started doing this, I was like, oh no, because my best friend has her master's in social work. And when we were in grad school together, one of her internships was working. Her specialization was in elderly care with social work focusing on geriatrics. So for her internship, she worked at an Alzheimer's care facility. And these were from people with various stages of Alzheimer's and dementia that they stayed there. It was kind of like an assisted living place because there was a full-time nursing staff, there were social workers, there was people who could take care of them. And she told me that what they taught them as social workers and as nurses is that what you don't do with someone who has Alzheimer's and dementia is try to be combative. So if they say, oh, it's 1929, you don't argue with them and go, no, it's 2025, because you'll just confuse them and you'll make them feel like discombobulated and feel isolated and everything. So they're like, look, you just go along with it. And you still treat them kindly. You still don't treat them like they're dumb or anything. But rather than confuse them and make them feel, even worse, just go with it. Roll with it and work with that patient. So if the person there was like, oh, well, today's a lovely day. I'm in the middle of Centralia. And you were not in Centralia. You just go, okay, yeah, it's really nice outside. It's cool. What are you going to do today? You're nice to them and you treat them like a human being, but also with the understanding that sometimes they're going to have episodes where they remember things clearly, but you don't know how long that's going to be. So Arata, because he's not a trained social worker and doesn't know, he thinks as a teenage kid, oh, my grandpa's back to his old self again. He remembered Karuta for the first time. He knows about the tournament. Okay, yeah, I'm going to go because you're back to normal. And didn't know it was just an episode. And that breaks my heart because it's not his fault. He didn't know. And his grandpa's like, you need to go. Now, what he should have done when he said, I'm not going this year, his grandpa's like, you need to go. And when he was like, really? And he's like, yeah. And then his grandpa has an episode, he says, why aren't you going? And I was like, well, and he's like, is he back to normal? And when he says, don't mumble, why would you skip a tournament? He gets aggressive there, which again is a sign he's confused. And what Arata should have done was say, yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to go to the tournament. And then stepped out of the room for a minute and came back. And for all he knows, his grandfather could have forgotten. Or he could have been like, hey, yeah, I'm going to go later. Don't worry, I'll go later. When we're done with this, I'm going to go. And not confuse his grandpa, but also not left him. But again, Arata's not a trained social worker. He doesn't know that's what you're supposed to do. I'm sure the doctors didn't tell him how to handle a patient with dementia in those situations. So he didn't know. And that just makes it so sad. And he's like, my dad should be back by noon. And he's like, I don't want to be left behind. And then again, when he looks back at his grandpa and he's like, picture in your mind winning. For that to be the last line his grandfather said to him, picture in your mind, you know that's going to stick with him and that's going to come back later on. You know it is. Oh. And I'm like, is he going to apply that same mentality to his relationship with Chihaya? How is that going to work? At this point, I'm honestly 50-50. I was really Team Arata at the start of this, and I'm still Team Arata, but I'm also Team Taichi. I'm 50-50 split, and I'm only 13 episodes in this series. But I feel like I was really rooting for Team Arata, and then Taichi's grown up so much that it's pulled me back towards Taichi. But I feel like I'm also a little bit biased because we've had so much time of Taichi and Chihaya together. We've not had a lot of time of Arata and Chihaya together. So I feel like it's not fair for me to say that I'm one over the other. So I'm just 50-50 split at this point. And then he went. And then when he got back home, that's when, yeah, he's like the pain and the heat. And he wasn't going to go, but then he wasn't going to go in the building, but then he heard the cards and the slamming of the mat. And then he opened it up just in time to see Chihaya faint. Because of course he does. Because of the drama. And the sight that he sees of Taichi grabbing her and holding her in his arms. Show. You're cruel. You're so mean. And of course, in that moment, Taichi's like, we got to get her out of here. She forfeits. We need to get her, to clear a path, get her out of the room. My thing is, nobody does anything. They're all just like a bunch of spectators, which I guess in real life that would be maybe what happens as well. And then as he's leaving, that's when Arata yells and pushes his way through and says, what's wrong with Chihaya? And Taichi's like, you're here. The last person that Taichi wants to see is right smack dab in the flesh in front of him. And he's like, but Taichi, being the leader that he is, good for Taichi, is like, hey, Taichi gets major brownie points with me because he obviously is jealous of Arata. And he obviously has so many bones to pick with him internally for reasons. But he puts all of that aside because he knows he has a match to play. And he has to do it for Chihaya and his team. And he says, okay, you take her and go. Props to him. And he's like, okay, just take care of her. And I'm going to go back. And Arata's like, it's so funny because in previous episodes, you have Arata seeming as this strong, empowered figure and Taichi as this scared and confused boy. But now the tables literally flip and Taichi is this strong, charismatic person. And Arata is this confused, awkward, shy teenager that's like, I just got here. And then meanwhile, there's the tennis coach and the mom that's there as well. And then she wakes up and the first person she sees is Arata. And of course, she's like, you're here. But she's also like, I was in the middle of a game. So it's this weird moment where she's like, you're the person I've been wanting to see. But then the angst is, she's like, this is not the circumstance. I wanted you to see me. And I wanted you to see me in the winner's circle, not forfeiting a game because I fainted, because I got sick. And she's so stunned when she sees him. And she's like, I'm in the middle of a match. oh my God, I'm in the middle of the match. I have to go. And he's like, no, you forfeited. You forfeited the match. And of course she's like, oh no. She's like, and she probably thinks that he would feel, like she failed him. So she's like, no, I got to go back to my team. I've got to go help them. She's like, let me go. There's no point in going back. They won't let you play. And that she's like, we worked so hard. We worked so hard to get here. We promised we would win together. Because that's always her thing. She wants to be there for her team, all of them, and give it her all. And she's like, I don't want to let my teammates down by getting sick. Oh. And I love Chihaya in this moment because that's really her MO. Like, again, Nishida said a few episodes ago, it's like, oh, she just wanted to go to nationals to see Arata. Well, clearly from this episode, no. Seeing Arata was the bonus. That was the cherry on top, like we said episodes ago. It's that she wanted to play with her team and be with them. And Arata knows that. He knows that. And he admires her for, like, how determined that she is. I felt so bad for her crying there. And he's like, well, shit. I show up. And he knows how she feels and how strongly she loves it. That when she's like crying in his lap and he's just got his hand over her. It's so sad. You're just as determined as you used to be. And then he's like, I've been doing a lot of thinking. He's like thinking about Karuta. Thinking about Karuta and my grandpa. And you see him like showing up. He's like, and then thinking about myself. Like, what do I want to do? The thing is, Arata is still very mysterious, and we don't get a lot of insight into what he's thinking in terms of, like, he wants to play again. He's like, I want to go back to playing because that's what my grandpa wanted me to do, and that's keeping on his legacy and everything. And he's like, he's like, you're so determined, Chihaya, to play and that you love it. He's like, I feel like Arata wants to meet up to her expectations of him. And he's like, I've kind of not been living up to those expectations and I want to get back in it. And I love these, like, I love Karuta. I want to keep playing. And I feel like Chihaya doesn't realize that she's inspired him as much as he's inspired her. And I'm like, ugh, it's just shipping fuel. He said he'd let Taichi and the others know, right? I want to see that conversation. I want to see that moment. We don't get to see it in this episode, so I'm like, are we going to go back and see that again? I want to see that conversation between Taichi and Arata. You better damn believe I want to see it. But are we going to get shown it, or is it just going to be off screen? Show. I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait for episode 14. I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait. I might have to do like 2 4-Nota card reads in another comment section because I don't know. And then he's like, she seemed unwell the entire match, this random guy. Who recognizes Arata instantly, Yoshioka from the Karuta Federation. He's like, I was worried. He's like, aren't you participating in this tournament? He's like, oh, well, no, I'm not. But then he's like, I can't wait to see Master Wataya again. Because your Karuta style is just like his. And Arata says he's been thinking about it. Thinking about his grandfather in Karuta. And I think in that moment, it's like that sealed the deal. When the light shined down and he says, my grandpa, I still love Karuta. I think that sealed the deal. I don't think Chihaya realizes when she made that prayer that it sucks for her to forfeit. It sucks for her to have this moment and for her to have these like missed opportunity to get to talk to Arata properly. That all sucks. But I'm like, girl, this entire moment sealed the deal for Arata coming back to Karuta. And you don't even know yet. I have a feeling he's going to go back one day. I don't know if it's going to be within these 3 seasons or if it's going to be in the manga afterwards, because I know the manga went on past season 3 and I've not made up my mind yet if I'm going to keep reading the manga or not. I probably am, but get on it, Madhouse, deciding if you're going to do season 4 or not. Just get on it so I can feel better, knowing whether I need to read the manga or wait for season 4. Just get on it, please. But I have a feeling it's going to come back. This is one of those episodes that it seems like it was so rushed. It seemed like it went by so quickly, but this is one of those episodes we're going to go back to over and over again for inspiration, for moments, to flashback and see what did we miss. Because, yeah, she wakes up. I like that Pseudo is the first person who saw her. Also, bitchin' outfit, Pseudo. Your clothes outside of tournaments. Good job. You look pretty cool. I like that Pseudo's the one that found her first. Not Taichi, not anybody else, but Pseudo was like stalking and waiting to berate her for not participating. And he's like, you forfeited because you weren't feeling well? And he's like, you were supposed to be representing Tokyo. And then like she starts crying. And he's like, what, your tears are going to get you off the hook? What a sadist. What a sadist. I'm surprised he didn't catch them on his hand and start licking them. But he expects her to be in the individual tournament tomorrow. And then Taichi's like, please leave. And they're like, it's all fun. It's all right. And then, yeah, Satomu's like, I got my first win today. He won 2 games in a row. Yeah. Yeah. And he's like, I wanted to play more. He's like, maybe you should take the bullet train home tomorrow instead of doing the individual tournament. And she's like, no, I'll be in perfect health for the tournament tomorrow. So what'd they say there? They said that they talked about that they lost to Fujisaki in the playoffs. Okay. And so then Taichi comes and finds her and says, you think you can play tomorrow? She's like, well, since I didn't do anything today. Yeah. Do you think Arata was disappointed? No. That's the thing. That's what I love about Arata. I don't think he was disappointed. Quite the opposite. She inspired him. He has no idea. And again, you go back to the very beginning of the series. I feel like Arata felt like he was a disappointment for what happened after he left them. And now the tables have turned, in the craziest twist of fate. He came to watch us. I wanted to show him how much better I had gotten. Now, I'm sure Taichi believes that he didn't come to watch him, but it's like, he's like, well, you were pretty heavy. I do love the little banter between Taichi and Chihaya. It's super cute. I love the banter between them where he ribs her and everything. That's... Again, I'm 50-50 now because that's a gesture of love. Taichi's love language and Arata's are very different. Very different. And it's like, do you want a sun and a moon combo or do you want a sun and a star? Because that's kind of the difference between the two of them. So then I love that they get onto each other and then he smirks at her. I'm like, ugh. And he says, oh yeah, Arata left this with Mr. It's for us. I think it's from Fukui. And it's a thing of Karuta cards, isn't it? And it says on there, next time we'll meet in a match. If Arata wanted to give her any gift that was the best gift known to man, this was it. I was like, this was the gift. This was the gift. If you wanted to get something to reach into Chihaya's heart and grab a hold of it and fuel it for the next 3 seasons, that's it. Because he just literally told her that, one, yes, I am still in love with Karuta. I'm going to keep playing it. We are going to play together. I am going to face you. I want to see you and I'm not disappointed. Are you freaking kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? Y'all. Yep. We'll meet in a match. And yeah, she's like, our feelings reached Arata. And again, I love that she says our feelings. She's like, it wasn't just me. It was Taichi and me. We both reached him because we're his friends. Now, Taichi watching this moment of her crying into that, he probably thinks that she's in love with him. But we don't know. We don't get to see that. We don't know. We don't know how he feels. Oh my God. I'm in awe of this episode. This episode frustrated me. It made me mad. It made me want to cry. It made me have the ultimate shipper turmoil. How have y'all lived through 3 seasons of this? I don't know, but yeah. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard waiting for episode 14. It's gonna be real hard. Usually what I do is I have like 9 different shows I'm doing on this channel. And so I usually make sure I do all of them and have them all ready for the following week so I don't leave any show behind. But I have a feeling I'm going to catch up to episode 14 before I get to the comments, and that might just have to happen. Oh my God. But yeah, this episode was incredible. I am in awe. I am amazed. I cannot wait to hear your thoughts down below. Just please, and I cannot emphasize this enough, please no spoiler talk of who Chihaya is going to end up with, or what, we're going to find out about Arata and Taichi, I am sure, as we go. But please no spoiler talk about the relationship love triangle business, because I don't want spoilers. I really don't want spoilers. I cannot say that enough. But otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And oh my God, we're going to come back and see what the hell we're going to do about these individual matches for Chihayafuru episode 14. And I'll see you then. Bye.